Yo, yo.
Yeah. You want to start with a little bit of a disclaimer?
Yeah, so Alex and I have been in contact with some sources for a while now. Uh, we choose not to share sort of 99% of what is told to us, both to protect our sources, of course, but also because the info is just too specific for public release. Um, so, and I know I always say, like, take what we say with a grain of salt, but yeah, it's just not necessary, at least for tonight. Um,
Yeah, just to make it clear, like it's not that we don't want to share stuff because like we're super excited about it, but we don't want to hurt Tesla. This is not, and we don't want to give information to competitors and things like that. So we try to keep it as meta as possible while being able to share some things to keep the community informed.
yeah. And I also say before we start, I want to say that, just mass manufacturing is hard and just in general. So there's really no way to provide like definite timelines for the things we're about to talk about. So just keep that in mind as we sort of go through. So I think we'll jump in. You ready, Alex?
Yep, shoot.
Cool. So the 4680s have been in production for a pretty long time now on the pilot line, and Tesla has been stockpiling the 4680s that fully pass several maturation cycles. It's sort of unknown right now, like how many they have stockpiled exactly, but we are aware that they are stockpiling.
Yeah, so the 4680s that are coming out like of Kato, a bunch of them are being like sent to multiple testing facilities, both in the US and in Germany. Other 4680s are being used in Fremont by the structural pack engineering teams, where they're like building and refining like the structural pack, and the rest are being stockpiled somewhere. The location, which we don't know.
Yeah, and just in general, like Tesla is refining like this production line so it can be like hyper scalable, right? Because they want to get to mass production. That's really their main goal right now. The specific like cell chemistry and all that, like all that's final. It's just really the manufacturing that they're trying to nail down here. But they are rapidly iterating improvements and perfecting it so it's fully automated with very few stoppages, so it can run with as little human intervention as possible.
Yeah, I don't know if some of you are familiar with manufacturing, but right now, like the main 4680 production line is divided into 10 subsections of manufacturing steps. Each has its own like performance metrics and targets, throughput, parts per minute, yield, etc. And Tesla's like target improvement metrics are basically defined as increasing speed, so the throughput, whilst decreasing MTBF, which is the mean time between failures. Decreasing response time is the time that it takes to catch that failure. Then decreasing the repair time, the time it takes to actually get the machine back up and running. And the last metric is decreasing the preventative maintenance time. So how much time do you have to spend to prevent this type of failure from occurring again in the future? So this is how they're like pushing forward. So you have to imagine this production line, which is like 10 steps, and each step is basically being monitored this way. And they're actually iterating little improvements every day as they're ramping the throughput.
Yeah, I see a lot of questions, about yield. Yield is very good for the run rate right now, but they're still working they're still working on the throughput. So there are like a lot of variables, right? And increasing one sort of uncovers simple engineering issues that need sort of like adjusting and fixing.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the yield is like extremely, extremely good. Like, I don't know, there's still room for improvement, but that's not where the problem is. So the batteries are coming out of each process step like in very high percentage of yield. But for example, like you remember, like Elon talked about the rollers bending, and so basically, what's happening is like the cathode dry mix, it's not shearable enough, so it doesn't like move out of the way when it gets like shaped into a freeform sheet, and it actually bends the roller and tends to clump up instead of like flowing out of the way. So these rollers, are very close together and they generate pressure. And Tesla right now is adjusting like the
Hmm.
rheological properties of the cathode dry mix by tweaking like the recipe and the production and nip parameters like temperature and pressure. So you got to think a little bit like it's a cake batter mix that you're trying to lay down super thin, and you need the excess, because you always need excess to make sure you don't have holes in that sheet that you're forming, the cathode dry battery electrode sheet. And so, but if the mix does not like flow out of the way as you're compressing it, well, then it like deforms the rollers and you get like a bump. But they're actually doing like great progress with it. And this is like, of course, when you tweak one parameter, uh, simple as making the machine go faster with throughput, something else pops up. And there's lots of these little issues. Whereas if you like, for example, you run a machine faster, well, the airflow, like the drag that the machine creates on the air is increased, and you could get like dust like sucked in. And this is where, at low speeds, everything seems to be working fine, but then you just increase the speed a bit and you find out, oh, we have a bug. So then how do you deal with that bug? And the way they're iterating right now is they're trying to, as Sawyers was mentioning, to make the system like hyper scalable, which means that once they have the design down, it's like they can replicate this. It's modular lines that it can be added one after the other without minimal supervision. And they know that if all the metrics I mentioned for improvement, for like decreasing maintenance time and so on and so forth, if they don't deal with that now, like today, well, then as they scale battery production, they're just increasing their problems, because these problems will repeat on every line. So it's like super important that they deal with it right now.
Yeah.
A month taken today to fix these issues will save like millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars down the line.
Yeah. And it sort of brings us on to initial 4680 production capacity, which will, at the installation at Giga Texas at least, we've been told will be for around 500,000 vehicles per year. Now, I want to be clear. This is just for like initial capacity. This isn't like an end capacity. This is just for the initial capacity.
Yeah, exactly. So like I was mentioning, this is like modular. So they can set up like, as if you want to increase capacity, you add additional lines. So initially what they're planning for to install is for 500,000 vehicles. This is to get Giga Texas started. Of course, that building, and probably most of you follow the construction videos of drone flyers at Giga Texas, that building is huge and it will contain like many, many more lines than just for 500,000 vehicles. But this is the initial rollout plan.
Yeah, and I'll just sort of finish up with, Tesla has been like super happy with the progress, and they haven't really hit any sort of major hurdles recently. So they're well on their way to sort of figuring out how to make this hyper scalable and to really mass manufacture in a way that they would like. So it's good to hear that they're making good progress. And I've been hearing all this FUD about the 4680s aren't good, or Tesla's not making progress on it. That's just not the case whatsoever. Tesla's doing
Yeah,
great on that front.
yeah, exactly. And like Sawyer mentioned earlier, these are like simple engineering issues. This is
Yeah,
not, this is like a foil tearing when you're, you are accelerating the throughput. So you have to adjust the tensions. You have to adjust, like how fast does it spool up to reach maximum speed. These are like simple problems. They're not like, oh my God, we don't know like 4680 if it's going to work or not. These are basic issues. But of course that they take time, because it's when you fix one and you can, okay, so you have that check mark, we fixed this, maybe three more pop up, because now you're in a different regime, going at different speeds, different, sizes of a foil. And like, because yeah, I think everybody knows, maybe we should have started with this. They started like with the bench line, the lab line, then the pilot line, and the pilot line is producing 4680s, and now they're on the Roadrunner line, which is the mass manufacturing one, which is, of course, as all have you heard Elon say, that mass manufacturing is hella hard. And this is where it's hella hard, because you have to deal with all these little issues. But once you have it
yeah,
down, then the payoff is huge.
Absolutely. So I think I think a lot of you, or at least some of you, might have questions. So I think we'll just jump up into a Q&A here. I do want to apologize in advance because we likely won't be able to answer a lot of your questions, both obviously to protect our sources, but also to not reveal too much. But yeah, if you guys have any
Yeah,
questions, feel free to call in right now and bring it up.
Yep.
Also, thank you,
Don't be shy,
Alex,
guys.
because without him, I wouldn't be able to understand half of the stuff that has been told to me. So him being an engineer has been very helpful.
Yeah, come on, guys. I'm sure you have questions.
125 people, no questions. They probably don't even know what to ask. I probably
Yeah, come on.
wouldn't either.
Oh, there's Bradford. Hey, Bradford.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll get us started. So, do they currently believe that they can make the fixes they need to the lines and still be able to make the batteries without having to like mess with the size or dimensions of the buildings?
Yes, I will say yeah. I mean, they're completely confident in the 4680 design and the chemistry and all that. It's just working out the little kinks and into making it being able to mass manufacturing at Giga Berlin and Giga Texas, obviously. But yeah, they have full confidence in it. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know if I understood correctly your question. You were talking about like the building size and everything. These lines are like modular, and it's not like the process will like get longer or wider, or these dimensions are already like set. It's basically all these parameters. You got to understand these things are like self-adjusting. So you have sensors that measure like the output, like let's say of the freeform sheet before it gets laminated. And also, I think people don't appreciate like how difficult it is. You're taking a dry powder on like two hoppers and basically creating two freeform sheets, which are laminating on a like hyper thin metallic foil on both sides simultaneously. So you just imagine doing that like by hand, you would go nuts. So imagine going at, I can't say that, this is where I have to catch myself. So at high speeds, this can like become a problem, and you'll have issues with the foil tearing, being like we mentioned, the rollers deforming because the thing is the mixture is not getting out of the way fast enough, it's not flowing out, and like wrinkles and all sorts of issues can pop up as you're ramping. And but these are not like insurmountable issues. Doesn't mean the machine needs to get bigger. These are the parameters and like the recipes and like how the machine basically behaves when it reaches these speeds. Once it's in steady state, there's no more problems. But getting to steady state means that you need to fix a whole bunch of little annoying issues. But each day, and I'm serious, like every single day, stuff gets resolved. But the list starts out very long, but only increases day by day. So it looks like an impossible problem, but we all know it is not. At some point, they will reach the desired throughput, and all the problems will be at 99.9% fixed. And now that we know that the yields are good, then they're in business.
Let me ask slightly different, Alex, and you can give a short answer. At one point, you theorized they had to add more rollers to kind of smooth out the whole process there. Do you think they are able to do that without having to like mess with the space too much? So
I was wrong about the backup rollers. I was thinking more like in other industries, this is actually used, a backup roller. In this case, we learned that it was like the mixture that needs to be like slightly adjusted. And the mixture like for the cathode is a lot more complicated than the mixture for the anode. So this is where like there's more tweaking to be done, but they're getting there. It's not like I said, it's not insurmountable. It doesn't change the basic chemistry of the cell, but for example, if you do, I don't know if you guys like ever baked a cake or anything, but if you have a buttercream, depending on its temperature, it's not going to spread the same way on the cake. So temperature is one of those parameters that has to be adjusted and fine-tuned so that the batter, for lack of a better word, like the dry mix of the cathode can actually flow out of the way and not like push on the rollers. So no backup rollers necessary. So that hasn't changed. And that was just me theorizing at the time, but it turned out being that there's another solution.
Cool. I got one more question, but I'll wait my.
Thanks, Bradford. Let's see. Take next caller. Gary, what's up?
Hey, just a question about where Maxwell fits in in this.
That might be a question for you, Alex.
Well, I haven't heard anything specific about like old, legacy Maxwell employees.
Yeah, I haven't either for that.
Yeah. So yeah, that has never come up. But yeah, maybe we could ask and see next time if we can tell you a little bit more about that. Yeah, we were like, you got to understand, like when we say 99% we can share, we're not like joking around. Like the amount of information that we're getting and need to analyze, because even as an engineer, this is not like, I'm not a battery expert and I'm not a manufacturing expert. So these things I have to like research and study up on, and it has to make sense to me and, to ask like pertinent questions. So this is what we've been focusing on more than like the HR side of it, of who's doing what. And, but yeah, it's an interesting questions, and I took note of it, and we're going to ask next time.
Yeah, because I understand that Maxwell still has their separate premise. Was it San Diego they were located or something like that? Or
I don't remember. I know Tesla sold off. I forget what portion of Maxwell's business recently.
The supercapacitor.
Yeah,
business.
that's what it was.
Okay, and then there are some R&D facilities in Dartmouth. Is it Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, or associated with the with Dalhousie or something?
Yeah. That's Don, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like to be honest, I would be surprised that at this point, at this stage, late in the game, where they're like perfecting the mass manufacturing, and when you look at, they had a proof of concept, Maxwell, and I would doubt that they would still be involved, because at this point, like it's beyond them. Like Maxwell has never made this thing, so they were, but basically they probably were involved in the bench and the lab scale, but as soon as it went to the pilot and now the Roadrunner, it's like it's beyond them. I don't see how they would provide input unless they're like some brilliant engineers that are there, but they were not looking to mass manufacture this until like Tesla stepped up and bought the IP.
Right. There's the the theoretical and experimental and the R&D type people, and then you've got the people that are hardcore into the production. So I can definitely think of all the production people and systems people who are going to be located at Kato, and probably they'll have some people looking at different chemistries and of course the holy grail of solid state.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like these like ice, like you remember I had tweeted something out about an iceberg, what we know Tesla is working on, and the underside, what's under the water, is what we don't know Tesla is working on. We don't have any insights, at least not yet, of the bottom like the bottom portion of the iceberg. We have no clue, but you can bet that those who worked on the original like 4680 idea for the past few years, that team that they built, they didn't just like mothball them or like retire them. They put them to work on something else. And that's something else we have no insights on. Right now, they're focusing on this thing. And this is where I think all their efforts are going to. And most of it, from what I understand, it's an industrial engineering type of issues that are popping up. So it's It's mostly like manufacturing issues, like the whole R&D of batteries and chemistry, and that's all been set. Now it's like, it's basically the same engineers that set up like a bottling plant or printing presses, high-speed printing presses, and all these things that are probably the most useful to solve these problems right now. Because yeah, no, I'm just saying this is like they're building the machine. This is not catalog engineering where you're just buying stuff in a catalog to make it. They're inventing the machine. They're designing it and building it and iterating on it. And that's going to be like the only one in the world that, you know, it's a little bit like the carbon fiber wrap rotor. Like there was no machine that could do what they wanted. Same as the Giga Press. They didn't like design the Giga Press. They went to expert and say, just make it 3 times bigger than you're actually making it now. But yeah, these machines, and this is where like Elon says like, yeah, if they try to copy us, they're still like way behind us because they can't buy these machines. They have to go through all these steps of figuring it out for themselves. It's not, even if you would have like photos of the machines, it might help a little bit, but you don't have all the parameters. You don't have everything. And by the time you have figured out the machine, Tesla is on version 2 of the machine already. So you're always playing catch up. Innovation is the name of the game.
And I'll just add, you know, to my comments earlier about Tesla's confidence in the 4680s. They've obviously been testing the 4680s for a while now in certain cars, and they've been experiencing some pretty incredible range numbers. Obviously, you know, these numbers won't be what the numbers what the numbers are going to be in the, you know, end production vehicles, but the potential there is pretty remarkable.
Great.
So it's full steam ahead for them. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Gary.
Joel, you're up, buddy.
Odin.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Just a quick one. Based on what you know, do you think it's likely that Giga Texas and Giga Berlin will start with 4680 vehicles or 2170s?
That's a good question. I want to say, at least for Giga Texas, I want to say 2170s. I don't know for sure, but just based on what I know, I think just at least initially 2170s would make sense. Just because they won't quite have the enough cells to really launch off production with the 4680s. But again, we don't know how many they have been stockpiling. So, but I doubt it's enough to really, you know, match the demand that they would need.
Yeah, I would just add to that this is where it's hard to predict because how the factories, where are they going to be at with the stockpile that they have, and are they going to be ramping sooner so they actually need a lot of cells to start ramping the production? So yeah, I think the backup 2070s, but you know, maybe they're going to ship the 4680s to Berlin, or maybe they're going to start 2170s in Berlin and keep the stockpile to ramp Giga Texas, or maybe Giga Texas is going to start earlier. The logistics of all this is we don't have insights into that, you know, like when is one going to start over the other one? What's the ramp profile going to be at each one? And so, yeah, I think Elon made it clear that, yeah, they have the backup plan for the 2170s, and it's basically how it's gonna land. They might, even like for the 4680s, like there is some sort of tentative timeline, but all this could be plus or minus a certain amount of time because problems, you know, they're figuring out that maybe like they don't know what the problems that are going to pop up, these engineering issues that are going to pop up like next week. So it's hard to predict. So they try, but it might go smoother like in the next few months, and they might be ahead of schedule and be able to, you know, help ram Giga Texas or Giga Berlin. So yeah, that's really, really hard to predict.
And would the 2170s be exported from Giga Nevada, or do you think they would build them on site?
I want to say exported would be my guess, right, Alex? I mean,
you want the ones that are currently being made at Kato?
No.
Oh, the 2170s. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, 2170s at Giga Nevada.
So exporting the 2170s to Berlin, is that the...
No, to Giga Texas.
To
they
Giga-
were to use them at Giga Texas, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would make the most sense to me, but we don't have like information on that.
Yeah.
So
Okay. And finally, I just thought of another one. If they start with 2170s, and that would basically make the Model Y, close to the Model Y that's coming out of Fremont at the moment in terms of like range, would they, when they switch over to 4680s, would they just have like a smaller battery pack so to keep the same range, to not like Osborne the previous vehicles?
That has been my thought the whole time. It's sort of my belief that, besides the actual like build quality of the vehicle, most people won't really notice the difference between the Fremont Model Y and the Giga Texas Model Y with the 4680s, at least underneath the vehicle, because I think they'll just try to sort of match, because Elon has said, he doesn't really need above 400 miles. And, 326 is pretty good for Tesla's at least currently entry vehicles. So yeah, I don't expect them to go like, have tons of batteries in them and just be well above 500 miles or 450 or whatever it would be. It's my belief that they would just make this, the pack smaller.
Yeah, and you also got to remember, you got to keep the margin, and there's no point in like blowing the competition, like what's available on the market, and like doing like 50% or 75% more range than what's currently available in the market, and trying to sell it for the same price. That would make no sense.
Yeah. Their goal is also to make as many vehicles as possible. So if they put bigger packs in the Model Ys, they just won't be able to achieve that, as well as they'd like to. So I think smaller packs make sense, but with similar range to what it is right now.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Joel.
Ken, you're up. What's going on?
Okay, there we go. Didn't know how to use this app yet. So, of course, Joel had all the kind of questions I was asking, but maybe we can go down a different path. What about, since we have the possibility, that backup plan of the 2170s or the 4680s, are there the center mold, right? There's the in casting and the front casting, the back casting, and you have that mid casting. Any ideas about that, maybe, Alex? With this,
I don't know what you mean by mid casting.
Well, the middle, because the battery is going to be a structural element, and is it going to be in a casting of its own? Why don't you speak to that?
No, it's just front and rear casting.
Yeah, the front and rear castings are attached to the structural pack, but the structural pack itself does not come out, is not a Giga casting. It's actually stamped steel.
Oh, it's stamped. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the pack, whether it contains 2170s or 4680s, will be inserted into that. It'll be a structural element with that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm really waiting to see Sandy Munro tear down the Plaid Model S, because that pack has some like special kung fu in it. Like, this is not a regular pack. They've updated something, and I'm waiting to see what's in there to get like more insights into what the structural pack. FYI, I've been working with a team of other engineers in different fields trying to figure out like how would the structural pack be done with 4680s, like what makes the most sense. And like, we're probably going to have a room on that eventually. We just absolutely need like a visual support because we can't, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and we would have to go through many pictures. So this would not work in just audio format. And we're going to have actually a test around beginning of October of a presentation with visual support with Colin at the same time simultaneously. So we'll do that test. If that test goes well, then we will have an upcoming room on the structural pack alone. So watch out for that.
That's interesting, yeah. Because Sandy did provide that, the wooden sample of the 4680s, and he wasn't sure exactly how it's going to be cooled, maybe just from the bottom, cooled from the bottom, or what the electrical conductivity is.
Yeah, so lots of things to cover there. I just don't want to like spoil the structural battery pack discussion. but it's going to be a very interesting one. And like I said, it'll be purely theoretical. We don't have any sources on the structural pack. Maybe we'll have some eventually, and we can give you something more definitive. But right now, it's going to be basically a bunch of engineers nerding out on what they came up with the information that's out there, both in patents and in some leaked photos, so on and so forth. Like, how is it built? What its characteristics, and how it's going to be manufactured, and so on and so forth.
Very interesting. I'm a fellow engineer too, so I'll be looking forward to seeing that. And thank you guys for all your help and support.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. AP, what's going on?
AP, you just have to unmute your mic.
Yep. Bottom right of the screen.
There we go.
Can you hear us?
Actually, I accidentally called in. Sorry about that. Yeah, must have.
Oh, now you have to ask
exactly.
a question.
I gotta figure one out really quick. How about let's see. Yeah, I didn't catch the beginning of the call, but so the yield is adequate.
Oh, more than adequate.
Yeah, we can't go into too much depth, but yeah, it's good.
Very high numbers.
And then as far as I guess one thing I was thinking of, have you heard anything about the battery day model and maybe a full casting of that vehicle?
No, I haven't really heard much on the Tesla Q, the $25,000. Haven't heard much on that lately. No.
Is that even possible? I know people have talked about that, and just kind of maybe get your take on that.
You're talking about casting like the whole front, rear, middle, all in one part.
More advanced production technique for the battery day car, because they're going to have to produce, hopefully produce, millions of those at a quicker rate.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, like they're growing the Giga casting machines like from IDRA, and like the biggest one is going to be the one for the Cybertruck so far.
Okay.
And I don't think that one rear underbody or front underbody casting for the Cybertruck is enough to make a whole car in one shot, basically. So it's possible. I don't know what the theoretical limits, because it's like, so they're already like so advanced both in the metallurgy and the casting techniques and the geometry and all this stuff. So I don't know how far it can go. Maybe it can be like a double injection, like from two sides. You remember the patent where they're talking about making the whole car basically out of like one casting, but there's like 4 casting machines working at 90 degrees of each other. Maybe that's in the works. I have no idea, but yeah, I wouldn't put it past Elon and Tesla, like engineering teams, to basically push the limits of what's actually possible. And blowing our minds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it should be exciting. One other thing is, as far as new gigafactories locations, I'm assuming that they would just expand on the existing footprints at Austin and Berlin. Seems to make the most sense.
Yeah, Elon had tweeted out a few days ago that Tesla hasn't chosen a location yet for Giga 4. But to me, it does, unless they want some location diversification, it sort of does make sense to sort of expand on the current land plots that they own, whether that be Giga Berlin or Giga Texas or whatever. There's space for the current building that they're building in Giga Texas. There's like space for over 7 of those on on the land that they own. So there's plenty of space for
that. Yeah, looks like in Shanghai too. They're doing work beside there.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about the mix up there with the call-in, but yeah, really appreciate what you guys are doing.
All good.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
All good, man.
Chris, you're up. Thank you for waiting for a long time.
No worries. Thanks for doing this, guys. I appreciate it. 2 questions. One, and I apologize, I missed a couple of minutes earlier, so you may have already covered this, but one, have you heard anything about supercharging speed on 4680? That's the first question. Second question, have you heard anything about dates of start of production on 4680 at Berlin and Austin?
So regarding charging times, I have been told in the past that charging times will improve. I don't know exactly by how much. They gave sort of ballpark numbers, but I don't know if I can share those numbers yet, so I'll have to reach out. In terms of actual, production start date, it's hard. We've been given some rough numbers, but I don't even know if it really makes sense to even share those, just because like it really depends on how well progress continues to go on the 4680s, because it's really hard to sort of exactly predict. Um, and obviously Tesla has sort of been
Yeah.
quiet on that as well. They don't want to give out hard time. They sort of just say 2022 for the Cybertruck now. They don't really give you more definitive dates than that, but yeah.
Yeah, we have some have been shared with us, but me personally, I feel that if Tesla hasn't shared it, I don't want those numbers like to be used against them.
Yeah.
If we give you that number and then this is like recorded and then it gets used against Tesla, this is not why we're doing this. We're here to have fun, like nerd out, share what we can, and if there's any remote chance that what we're sharing is hurting Tesla, whether it's good news or bad news. Like, I'm not saying either way. We're not like keeping the bad news hidden just to protect Tesla, but even some good news might, if they go over it, might hurt Tesla. So that's not what we want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just want to be careful is all.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
Brandon,
what's going on?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. So I just had two questions. First would be, which model do you expect the 4680 to be put in production for? And secondly, do you expect all models to be eventually replaced to 4680s, or do you think there would be like two different variants of the cars being offered, like one with the batteries we have now and another variant with the 4680?
This is like Tesla doesn't. When they started Tesla, they used to put like the size of the pack as so you had Model S, 75, 100, and they basically backed away from that because it didn't mean anything in the sense that the two cars that had 100 kilowatt hour packs, they didn't get the same range.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the same performance. They didn't have the same efficiency. So what's the point of advertising that? And I think the form factor of the battery, the chemistry of the battery, they don't want to go into that. This is, first of all, I think it's over most people's heads. Like, they don't care. They're just looking at the range, the price, and how cool the car is, and like the features, what's under the hood, and how many people know what's the displacement of their ICE engine. Like, most of them have no idea even what the question means. So I think that's not what's important. I think what they want is because the margins on the 4680s are going to be so superior on so many aspects, and you just got to look at battery day again to see how they're improving on every step of the way, and both on capex and on operational costs of 4680. This is where I think, yeah, eventually they want to, but they're still constrained. Like, the market is growing faster than people can output the batteries. So there's going to be a mix for a long time to come.
I would agree. Yeah. And you asked
Thank you.
what model would be produced first with 4680s, or just the Model Y for sure.
Yeah.
In both places, in Giga Texas and Berlin. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Brandon.
Dave, you're up.
Hey guys, thanks for the opportunity to chat. This is great.
Sure.
My curiosity is kind of going towards what Tesla is doing with equipment. There's been talk, especially about like Tesla Grumman, that's manufacturing the lines for Kato. Do we know how much more equipment they're producing for other facilities like in California and Texas right now?
we don't know specifically like with Grumman, but we have been again told some numbers, but I don't think it really makes sense to share that, both to protect Tesla and because things can obviously change depending how the progress goes. So I'm sorry that's sort of a non-answer, but
yeah, I don't know. Maybe I can, without giving numbers, like to go back to what we were saying earlier. These lines are very modular, so it's like Lego blocks, for lack of a better like analogy. So basically, if you want to increase the capacity, you just add these Lego blocks.
Right.
And the initial capacity for Giga Texas, we can't share the number of Lego blocks, but it's for an initial capacity, an output that is sufficient for 500,000 cars.
Okay. So like I guess a different way to phrase it would be, because I'm not looking for numbers. I'm looking for like line, I suppose. That their line and the battery day they were talking about having multiple lines, and how much of a reduction in space and processing time that would be.
Yes.
There's the calendar rolls and getting the consistency out of rolling the material. That was a big problem that everybody's been talking about for some time now. But the remainder of the line, Alex, you were talking about that, as you turn the knob from 10 to 11 and then 15 to 16, you're going to have iterative problems that you solve. But the overall design, I'm assuming that,
Yes.
easy parts, getting, 1,000 batteries from this section to that section, that's still a lot of equipment. And is their commitment strong enough that they're really going forward with placing battery lines?
For sure. I'm not sure I understand your question exactly, but yeah, there'll be many of those lines at Berlin and Giga Texas. Like many, 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 many.
I guess my off of news that I just heard a little bit ago about building another line in Lathrop, California. So if maybe I heard that.
Hold on. Lathrop is to produce megapacks.
Megapack.
Those new gigantic megapacks, version 2.
Okay.
So those are like for
some stuff
stationary
wrong.
storage. Yeah, stationary storage. Totally different things using LFP batteries and
Yeah, those don't use 4680s.
yes. No. So yeah, they're not producing the 4680s over there.
Okay, I got some wires crossed. I'm sorry about that. But great talking with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, John, how you doing? You gotta unmute yourself.
There we go. Got it.
Yeah, it's let me ask you a question. First time on call-in?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you like it so far?
Yeah, so far so good. It beats kind of the Twitter Spaces. I always had more audio issues there.
Oh, cool. Glad to hear it.
Yep. So more of a general question. Obviously, you guys have both received information, over a period of weeks or months from various sources as they work through all the problems that Alex, you were especially iterating over on the various parts of the line. How would you characterize sort of, the tenor of the messages you get now of if you read the tea leaves slightly of how close they feel they are to getting it to scale to where they want versus they're still only in the fourth inning of a baseball game. I'm just trying to get a sense of how you guys read sort of the feedback you've gotten over time.
I would say, earlier on, there was a lot less confidence and there were a lot more issues to deal with. But since then, Tesla's really worked through that. And I would say the general sense is that we're quite close here, or Tesla is, I should say. And the general confidence at Kato is quite high. And yeah, I think, Alex, you can probably expand on that.
Yeah, they're really motivated. Elon is hands-on with the teams. He's very interested in that, and the teams are always blown away when he contributes because he is he is a brilliant man. He knows he can grasp a problem and foresee solutions, and
There is no better problem solver than
Yes,
you are.
that has come. The feedback we've got like from multiple different people that this is how they feel about him, and even at SpaceX, it's not just like at Tesla. People that have worked closely with him on like all sorts of problem, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's software, they say like, yeah, he's brilliant. So they're very motivated, and they see the the end of the tunnel. It's like when you're in a tunnel and you don't see the end, you don't know. But now they're feeling like, yeah, the yield is good, the throughput. Like I'm not joking. Every day, or like no, because they don't do every day, but let's say every week is much better than the previous week. So they solve stuff. Of course, new stuff pops up, but the numbers are always going up. So they have, like I said,
the rate of improvement is incredible. Like the stuff that Alex and I have been shared with, it's just like when we look at it, it's just like, how do people still think Tesla is a car company? Is just like beyond me. It's just comical.
Yeah.
What they're doing is just something that certainly I've never seen before, and it's just incredible. It really is.
Yes, because like I said, like they're actually building that machine. This is not catalog engineering. This is basically like, okay, this has never been done. How do we do it? And how do we do it like mass manufacturing? But on top of that, also highly modular. So that means that even if, let's say you have, let's say at Giga Texas, in a year or two, you would have like 20 lines. Well, if one breaks down, like you won't even notice it because there's other 19 are working. So they're making them super reliable, super scalable, and they're investing that time right now so they don't have to explode later on when they scale it up. So yeah, it's very, the enthusiasm around that manufacturing and the Roadrunner line is pretty amazing.
So follow up to that, Alex. I mean, I was visiting a friend down in Austin. I live in the Dallas area, but I was visiting a friend in Austin a few weeks ago where I posted a Twitter video just driving by the facility. As you mentioned, it's huge. It's just hard to comprehend unless you actually go there and see it in person. For all the work that the drone flyers do, it has a different impact when you actually are there. And as you look at the progress of those drone videos, one of the things that that strikes me is, that again, northwest corner of that building where the battery facility is going to be, has remained one of the last pieces. It's not done. They've worked on obviously other parts of the building where they put in machinery, et cetera. So I'm trying to gauge, two things, and your thoughts would be appreciated. Like one is, they'd have to kind of wall in and finish that building to put in the machinery. And then how long, does it take them to set up a line, any guess, right? So let's say it's, 2 months for them to finish off that part of the building. Is it a month for them to put up the first line? Is it 2 months? Is it, less, more? I'm just trying to get a gauge because that'll tell me when they start running them in at least Giga Texas.
Well, like first of all, like the building, like you said, it's huge. I don't know if you remember the leaked the pre-production Model Y. Like when I first saw that photo, I was like, for me, it was like, oh, this is like Berlin. Is this Shanghai? It never even crossed my mind that initially could be Texas. My mind wouldn't let me go there because I watched those drone videos, and I was like, yeah, but like there's no walls like in the final assembly. But no, like there is a portion that is actually sufficiently walled off that you can have all the final assembly of a Model Y done there. So the huge footprint that is the northwest corner that's dedicated to batteries, there's probably enough space that's walled off and that has lighting, that has everything it needs to start installing like equipment. And there's some very basic equipment that is not going to change no matter what. Like, for example, the mixing, like those where you mix all the powders, the ingredients. These, they're not like high tech. They're just mixers. And you need to like basically bring the raw materials in there. So there's a lot that they can do that we wouldn't be aware of. And although we have, I think, coverage at 3 different times of the day, one with Tegmeyer, one with Jeff, and one with Terra Factory. I don't know his name.
Randy.
So with them, like they're all at like slightly different times, but like getting equipment in the building, it just basically the crane putting it on that scaffolding and rolling it in. And if you're not there to see it, well, you know, you don't know about it. So and
agreed. I can certainly understand how they put some parts of the building, basically the southeast corner that they walled in first, and obviously have put a lot of machinery in there, even from the quarterly presentation deck showing parts of what was already done. So that's certainly been interesting. And I just don't know if you guys have gotten any feedback or idea of once they sort of figure out they're at a good part with that Roadrunner line of how long it takes it to set it up in Berlin or in Austin.
No. Like and none of them who are actually now working on the Roadrunner, for them, they've never set it up like from scratch from a plan, but it's going to be much shorter. You can understand once you know where you're going and the parts come in and you have the blueprints of exactly how to set it up. It is like, it's a lot of automation, but it's not like hyper complicated automation either. Like these I can't. I have to stop there, because if I go more, I'll give too much information.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Appreciate the feedback you guys have. Thanks.
Yeah. So sorry about that, but I want to nerd out with you guys about it, but I have to catch myself and stop, because I could say stuff that I might regret later.
Yep. Understood. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Sure. Abe, what's going on, man?
What's up? So what model line do you guys think will roll out with the 4680s first? Because obviously they'll have to shut down a line or two, either it's in Austin or Fremont, to roll out 4680s. So the question is, which model line gets it first?
Oh, good question.
Yeah.
We know they're building, like, the engineering team that's working on the structural pack is at Fremont. So might make sense that it could be there, but
It'll be like an S or an X.
yeah, or a Model Y. It could be a Model Y, because that's the one they want to scale.
I would think Model Y.
S and X have been refreshed already, and the largest volume one is going to be Model Y. So I think that's where they want to put them first, and like figure it out first for the Model Y.
But let's say if they start production in Austin without 4680, then they would have to shut down Model Y production in Austin at the same time, or shut down Model Y production in Fremont, or do they do simultaneous Y production in both places? So it becomes a question of how can they efficiently optimize while shutting down and opening new lines with 4680.
I don't know. Well, we don't have any information on the logistics of how it's gonna play out.
Shooting the shit.
Yeah. Do you have an opinion on this?
I mean, I would think they would probably go with an S or an X somewhere in Fremont first, and then basically redo Fremont lines with 4680, and then essentially roll 4680 into Austin later. So, and then
the thing we haven't heard, like, just to add to what you just said, the thing we don't know is, we know they've been stockpiling. We started, I don't know if you were in the room when initially when we opened it. So we know, like, they've been producing a lot of them, and a lot of them are going out for testing. A lot of them are going, like, for the engineering pack, and a lot of them are being stockpiled. So it's, but once the Roadrunner line is finished, even though this is like, I don't want to use prototype, because it's not really a prototype, but it's like the working model that they're fine tuning. Once that is done, I don't see them, like, not using it. This is the line. Why not just keep producing 4680 there? So they have the pilot line that's producing currently, and they would have the Roadrunner line, which is producing, like, way more. They might just pump that right into Fremont and make a Model Y line Like I said, I don't like your idea of Model S, Model X because they have already been refreshed. And they have a new pack design. This is what I was saying. I can't wait for Sandy Monroe to get his plaid and tear it down, so we can see like what's inside. Because I think we're going to be pretty shocked. It's not going to be like the structural 4680 packs. We know that, but what is he going to find in there? There's some big innovations in there, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, Model Y, I think, would be my guess. Cool. Thank you, Abe.
Thanks.
Bradford, full circle.
Yo, so to quasi answer Abe's question too is it's rumored that in both Berlin and Austin, at each location there are 2 Model Y lines, and one is ready for 2170, and one is ready for 4680. That's the rumor. So they wouldn't have to stop a line to start 4680. But they could roll it out a different way. My question is, like, on Kato Road, how long are they able to get the line to run for? And like, do they take like a SpaceX approach and try to run it as fast as they can till it breaks, or do they try and run it as long as they can till it breaks, or is it like a planned, yeah, let's run it for an hour, see what happens?
Can we, what can we say? Yeah, I would go more like I said, like the yield is good. So if we're talking throughput, you can imagine that, yeah, they're pushing the throughput, if that makes sense. So they're pushing the speed. And this is one of the metrics. Like the only metrics they're trying to increase right now is speed. All the rest, they want to decrease them. So the mean time between failures, the response time to address these failures, the repair time to repair those failures, and the preventative maintenance time. So all these they want to decrease, and the one they want to increase is speed. So like go faster. That's how they're basically looking at it now. And yeah, so they will do burst runs.
Have they ever been able to get it to run like for a full 8 hours?
I don't want to. Yeah, no, I don't want to start giving you numbers,
Okay.
but yeah, it's.
Let me ask
it's
a different question then. We've been talking a lot about 4680. Anything juicy to share about Shanghai or Cybertruck or Semi?
It's funny, actually, we haven't heard anything about Shanghai. I'll have to ask about that. Semi or Cybertruck, we've been given like rough timelines for some things, but I just don't even think it makes sense to share that because it's just like it's so fluid that things can just change on a dime. But yeah, sorry, I wish I could dive in more.
What I'm wondering about Shanghai is supposedly the first floor square footage for Model Y is like close to twice the size as Model 3. And a lot of the Model Y buildings have multiple floors, whereas the Model 3 only has one. And I'm wondering if today they have capacity for 500, 600,000 on Model Y in Shanghai.
It certainly is. I mean, it's possible. Yeah, I just haven't really heard much, so I can't really offer much on that front, unfortunately.
Well, thank you much, guys. It's always fun.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, we like to share as much as we can. Like I said, we're going to probably have a structural battery pack room, and we'll see. We'll be able to nerd out on that. But yeah, as we get it, a lot of it, we have to sift through it and see what we can share. So like Sawyer mentioned, a lot of it, we've been sitting on it like for a long time because we couldn't share anything, and we got some more. And then, throughout that, we managed to like have enough for this room. So I hope you guys appreciate it. We'll keep doing it. Like as long as we have stuff we can share, we'll be scheduling this room. Try not to be like repetitive. So what was mentioned today, especially that it's recorded here on Callin. So this episode is available. So it's not like in Clubhouse where we can like go over the same thing over and over again. So we'll try to build up on this as we can. And there's enough to make, like, we've been going at it for an hour. And this is our target, is basically episodes that last around an hour. And when we have more info, unless it's something massive but short, we'll try to accumulate enough to give you good content.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, again, he said it's recorded, so you guys can access this episode, whenever you want on Callin.
Yeah, and you can create highlights.
So that's it.
Let's say when you ask a question and the answer you got, you can create a highlight there between 1 second and 10 minutes long. You can make them. And you can actually share them and title them, and they'll be credited like for you as if you were, because you were part of the creation process of this content, because you called in and you asked a question. So yeah, feel free to create highlights. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. So make sure to give XPod a follow on Callin if you can. That'll be awesome. Give Alex a follow too on Callin. That'll be cool. And thank you everyone for calling in. You guys asked some great questions. And we'll try to keep you guys updated just in the future on, on the 46As or whatever else we're hearing and that we can share. But other than that, I think, it was fun.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And so we're about to close the room, and we catch you guys later.
Yeah. Have a good night, everyone.